All right, we are live again. Thank you so much for joining us. Another Friday, another week. I can't believe how fast the time flies, especially with everything that's going on. But thank you so much. My name is Olga Bolotina. I have a privilege and the honor to host this show for you. And today I have Judy Schriebman joining me from Marin County. Judy, I'm so lucky. I thank the universe all the time that she decided to join the Sierra Club and decided to become a chair of the Marin group of the Sierra Club SFA chapter. And she's been doing an amazing job, incredibly easy and wonderful to work with.
Thanks.
So, Judy, you were one of the people who was California native and Marin native. This is
Mhm.
amazing. So it's a lot of work. Yeah. Actually, it's interesting. I don't really meet a lot of people who are like born and raised in California.
Right.
So,
No, we're pretty rare, especially in Marin. It's a rare thing.
right.
And my husband was also a Marin native, and our parents were still in Marin. Mine until they died, and Jeff's parents is still his mother is still here in Corte
Oh, wow.
Madera. So it's like both of us being Marin folks, and so our kids grew up here and in Tokyo, in Berkeley, and here.
Wow. That's interesting. All right. Okay. We'll come back to
That
that. But
opens it. Yes.
I just want to mention that you wanted to mention that your big background growing up is Girl Scouts and traveling and camping. So I thought it was fascinating. It's great because not everybody who is environmentalist or involved in sustainability has that background, because that was my assumption at some point. It's like, well, everybody just loves nature, that's why they're in this movement. But it's actually not true. But also you're serving as elected official on, I'm going to read that, Las Gallinas Valley Sanitary District. So
That's
it's sort of
correct.
like an equivalent of East Bay Municipal Water Treatment District. Is
In a
that
way, EBMUD is huge because they do not just sewage, but also water. So they're a huge agency. We're a little, but we do the whole thing for sanitation. So we do collections and treatment, which
I,
is the big thing you do for sewage treatment.
I see. Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll
So,
we'll talk a little bit about that also, because
yeah.
that's an important part of your life and your work in Marin County. And also, I know that you do in homeopathy, which
Mhm.
is another interesting aspect. I really want to hear about that. And
Right.
you have background in zoology and homeopathy. With zoology, is sort of interesting now how it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
European
Yeah.
global pandemic.
Right. So again, love of nature, love of animals, love of plants, that all feeds into, for me, zoology. The animals were a little bit more interesting than plants were at the time, but I'm really getting into plants these days. We again, growing up, we would visit just about every state park, national park, historic area like that. We would pile into the station wagon, no seat belts laying in the back kind of thing, heading out into the great outdoors. And my mother was always careful when we stopped at a hotel. They either had a pool or they had a creek in the back that we
Oh,
could that she could let the kids out of the car, go play. There's four of us, so I have an older sister, an older brother, and a younger brother. So four kids cooped up in the car for maybe 6 hours or so. You let them out, and you
yeah.
let them run around and play, and you got your head back.
No phones, right? No
No
screens.
phones, no screens. There was, on a big, long, like 8 hour trip, she had carefully hoarded comic books. So
Oh,
we each had like four comic books that we would read and then trade around. And the slow readers, we were like, come on. And
that's
that's how I
smart.
first,
That's
really
smart.
smart. I first got introduced to Mad Magazine there, which was a serious influence on my life with their satirical songs and their satirical take on TV. Yeah, it definitely was a big part of my life.
Now that makes sense. You that
It fits, doesn't it? Yeah.
slightly sarcastic, dry humor sometimes.
Yep.
Not many people have here.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Marin, but you also mentioned that you traveled. So
Yes.
where does Japan fits in? How
Uh
you said that your son, right, lives there, or
no, no. He we so UC Santa Cruz, ran into my husband, went to UC Berkeley, lived in Berkeley for a few years. He got a job in Japan. They actually recruited him to come to Japan to do what he'd been doing in Berkeley in the computer field. And so we packed up with myself and the two kids. So David was 4, Robin was 1, and went and moved to Japan. Yeah, I had a little trip there myself with Jeff to begin with, just to get used to it, the idea. And he had actually asked me when I was pregnant with my daughter, Robin, about going to Japan. And I said, not till she's 1 year old. I'm not going to Japan pregnant. I'm not going to give birth in Japan where I don't know the language or anything, and I've got no family support. But
plus, your daughter cannot be a president. And
that would have been, you're right. Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. And she'd be a great president. Oh, good thing. Yeah, so it's a good thing I waited.
We're paving the way. So I hope it's all gonna
it'll all work out. That's right. That's right. Oh my gosh. So anyway, so we had almost 5 years in Japan, living in Tokyo itself, which is pretty dense.
Wow.
And
5 years. That's a long time.
It's a long time. And I got to, the first 2 years, I have to say, were rough. But after that, I grew to love it. I really didn't want to come back. David was getting old enough to be able to ride the train by himself or take a bus by himself anywhere. And it was a nice place to be that way. That the kids had, I felt that they were safer there than here, to be honest. And they had more freedom and more autonomy there.
Now, so, he was what? He
would have been, let's see, for 9 years old. Yeah. So he came back to 3rd grade, 4th grade, something like that.
Wow. Well, of course, I'm like, oh my God, wow, it's so young. But then, when I was growing up in Russia, I was taking bus to school by myself, starting at age 8, probably, for sure.
Exactly. And
that's probably younger sometimes, and certainly, I was like, okay, be home at this time, and then you go and play in a
wherever.
Oh my, yeah. Of course, parents did not know a lot of things we did.
No, and that's really good. That keeps parents young and healthy. And when they don't know what their kids are up to, a lot of times, we were pretty much let go in the neighborhoods and climbing the hills. We lived on a hill and just go off in the hills. We caught scorpions. We played with spiders. We looked for snakes. We did all the fun stuff. And back to zoology. There was
where did you grow up in Marin?
In San Rafael.
San Rafael.
Yeah, we started out in the Bret Harte area, which I loved because it was right after the war in a way, and all the kids, there were hundreds of kids there, and our parents would just all let us out into the street, basically, at 3 o'clock when school was out. So all the kids were there. We'd do things. We'd have parades around the block with bikes and trikes and wagons and kids of all ages and roller skates. It was just, that was great. It was great fun.
Nostalgia. I have nostalgia now.
Yeah, I know. It would be a wonderful thing for any kid to have that kind of growing up, and I would wish it for every child to be able to have that freedom and autonomy and ability to play with other kids without restrictions in a warm, wonderful, safe environment. Not as many cars zooming by the roads then.
Yeah. Either. That's so true. That's so true. Well, it's interesting, and I'm not a parent, and so who am I to give any advice? But I'm just looking at statistics. Statistically, the world became a little safer, minus the cars. So the cars, of course, when the people, anyway, people are not paying attention, rushing everywhere.
They're going pretty fast. Yeah. So anyway. Yeah, lots of fun times out in nature with no restrictions and just your own imagination a lot of times.
So how did you get to did you interact with scorpions and the ants?
That's a good question. So technically I was allergic to dogs and cats and fur as a child. But I think my mother was really allergic to having a dog or a cat, because she knows that the kids don't necessarily take care of it. So the mom ends up taking care of it. She didn't want to do that. She had other stuff she wanted to do. So we had fish, we had turtles, we had scorpions, we had spiders. I mean, at home. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, we kept the scorpion in the dishpan and fed him spiders, caught bugs, fed him spiders, and
Wow.
And my parents were all cool with that. So that was great. It wasn't a dog or a cat that you really had to take care of. They don't last long. But turtles were the real thing, because we always got those little dime store turtles that you used to be able to get, which you don't get now. And that was part of my activism, actually.
Thank you.
And they would last about 6 months, and literally last about, because they were fed poorly. They weren't given the proper containers. People didn't, either that it was the pet store benefit for them not to know, and parent benefit to have the pet die in a while and you don't have to worry about it. But it bothered me, and it bothered my family, to have dead turtles, a string of dead turtles. And we wanted to know. So we kept learning, and each one we got a little bit better at. We learned what food they needed. We learned that they needed to have a warmer temperature, not just a dishpan with the water going up and down, the little plastic palm tree and the little plastic island, which is what they were sold with. You know, this much water, poor things. Treated like a plastic animal, essentially, rather than a real live animal. So eventually I got turtles that got big, big red-eared sliders now that are, you know, this size. And the funny story is that, so I was a member of the Bay Area Turtle and Tortoise Society in high school. And we had a friend, and we drove over to Berkeley to the meetings. Eventually we started doing shows at Steinhardt Aquarium. We would have a weekend where we'd bring all of our turtles in, and we would just meet the public, talk about turtles and reptiles, because we had a lot of folks with really cool turtles in the group. A mata mata, which is this fascinating Amazonian turtle with this big flat head and all this stuff sticking out of it. So it hides in the mud until a fish comes by, and it shoots its neck out, opens its mouth. So it's created a vacuum, sucks the fish in with a big bump that you can hear, and chews it up. So So feeding the mata mata was something where all the crowds would gather around and want to see, because it's really fascinating.
Wow, I would love to see that. I need to Google that one.
Yeah, Google the mata mata. It's a cool turtle, and it should stay where it is. It should not be collected and taken home.
What is the native habitat?
Mata mata? Probably mata mata. It sounds like that. I don't know anything other than that. Sorry.
Okay. No, not to put you in a spot. I'm like, well, we should leave them where they are.
We should leave them where they are. It's like all wild animals should really be left where they are. You know, there's a lot of captive breeding, but we should leave the wild ones there and not buy them.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I met my husband at the turtle show. And I had 3 female red-eared turtles. He had 3 male red-eared turtles.
Ooh.
So it was sort of fated that, you know, we would get together, and then we did actually get eggs from the turtles, and a couple of them hatched. But,
wow.
So yeah, and that's so turtles kind of led me into zoology. They got me a husband. Turtles are sort of one of my totem animals, I have to say. So, that's right. That's right. Oh God, can I do this? Yeah, there we go.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. Which hand?
It's whatever one can do this wiggly fingers thing. So yeah, my daughter we got a scuba diving lesson. Yeah, there you go. You got it.
The right hand is a little
That's
better.
it.
Wow.
So that's a scuba diving signal for you seeing sea turtles in the water. And so I just had my first scuba lesson in February this year in Hawaii, and went to a turtle cleaning station where the sea turtles just hang out like this, waiting for the cleaner fish to come out of the reefs and chew the little bugs and algae and parasites off their bodies. So there's 4, 5, 6 turtles just kind of hanging in the water there, waiting for the fish to come service them, and it was great. Turtle nirvana. Oh, Olga, it looks like your screen might have frozen. I can tell another turtle story if people aren't too bored, and that's that I got to go to the Galapagos Islands when I was in high school. Oh, you're back. Okay, great.
I am back. Yes, I wasn't sure. I was like, is this me frozen? Are you frozen? Or both of us are frozen?
I don't know. I was still, but I don't know. Hopefully, well, we'll see. We'll find out when we look at the tape.
Listen to turtle stories.
Turtle stories can go forever. Yeah, the Galapagos. I was there with Peter. Now I can't remember his last name. It's really so sad. He had an Audubon grant. He'd been going to the Galapagos Islands for many years, doing the tagging of the turtles with a metal tag, like a cattle tag, so that if a turtle was caught or washed up or whatever, we could try to tell where the migration. Where are these turtles coming from? because they could be coming from, and they got picked up from all over the world. So these guys were migrating to the Galapagos to lay their eggs on the beach, which is what all sea turtles have to do. And so we were waiting on the beaches, going out at night when the turtles would come ashore, waiting till the female really got on the nest site, and then doing the quick tag on their flipper, counting the eggs in the nest and writing it down. So I got to have actually a week on a beach alone by myself, tagging turtles all night while he went off and did a tour with Audubon folks, and at 19 years old. Fabulous. So really good that I know how to camp. I realized when I got there, I didn't really know how to cook. That was frightening. I had a lot of
supplies with you at least.
I had lots of supplies. I just didn't know what to do with them. I'd never really cooked in my life. So I had like cold oatmeal. It was an El Nino year, so it rained. It rained every day. Starting a fire was not going to happen. So I had a lot of cold stuff out of the can, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, of course, that's how I, also camped in Russia also. It was like spam, pasta, but we did make fires there,
yeah.
but a lot of it was sort of, cold
food. Yeah.
You do what you have to do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's a fabulous experience. Were you scared, or were you?
Yeah, there was a slight concern, which is why it wasn't advertised I was there alone. There was a military base this is on the island of Baltra, which is north of Santa Cruz, and Santa Cruz is where the Darwin Research Station is. Baltra was the place where the airplanes come in and land. So I was hoping I wouldn't get visited by the military guys at night. That was the only thing I was kind of a little concerned about there. It's Ecuadorian military, but so that was the only thing I was really a little concerned about.
Yeah, well, and also, I think it's difficult for us to sort of take ourselves from now into then when, I don't know, but I'm assuming you didn't have cell phone, and I grew up without cell phone and stuff, so it's like you were alone. No
totally
way.
Alone. No. I was writing long letters in my tent, longhand with a pen. That's that age. It's almost like Jane Austen, yeah.
But what an experience. So what was, did you see the actual baby turtles, or did you
yes. Yeah, there was another time. So I had that one beach week alone, and then I had another week with a young man who was Ecuadorian from the college. He later became the director of the Darwin Research Station, and he was also a big turtle fan. So we were there, again, counting the turtles, watching the turtles, and we had one nest erupt maybe in the daytime, which is rare. The turtles all come out of the nest at once.
Wow.
They're all laid at one time. They all hatch out at one time. They all crawl up and head toward the ocean at one time. And so there was this, it's an eruption. It's like the sand opens up and the turtles are screaming down. And I didn't see that. What I saw was the frigate birds that were coming in to pick up the seagulls, the pelicans, the frigate birds that were coming and picking off every turtle that was erupting. So I ran out there with a big pot, and I was trying to scare the birds away and let the turtles go there, but it wasn't working. So I started picking up the turtles and putting them in the pot. And then I waited till all the birds went away, and then I let the turtles back out in the ocean.
Wow.
So that was the only nest I ever saw.
That's the circle of life. That's what's happening in nature. But because I think that turtles are now endangered in a lot of species, and we don't have enough of them erupting, and
Exactly. And they figure like 1 out of 100 turtles that hatches actually makes it to adulthood. So you can see if you start slaughtering off a lot of those adults, you have really taken out that bottom of the pyramid in a major way. And that's where beach protection is so important. And obviously not eating green turtle soup was important. And that led me to Sacramento way back when on the islands of Grenada, they were penning big sea turtles in a pen, feeding them cat and dog food, and then trying to sell them in cans for green turtle soup. But once a turtle's in a can, you really can't tell whether it came from a farmed location or from the wild. So we went to ban that happening in California at Sacramento.
Wow. So when was that? Which year was that?
Really don't remember. I remember I was either in college or high school. I mean, literally going to Sacramento at that point. So political activism is early in my life as well
Wow.
as environmental activism.
So how was it then back then? I mean, it's like, did you organize the whole group of people and went to
It was,
Sacramento?
again, it was with my mentor, who got the Audubon to the Galapagos before this, so that we were there. And it was my first introduction to the term biostitute, which was a biologist who had been feted, and I mean, galled, paid for, brought to the Grenada, hosted, wined and dined, and told how wonderful this thing was. And she came gushing to Sacramento to say how wonderful the program was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the influence of money and power and corruption comes into the sciences, which is really sad that they took.
What is the term again? I'm so sorry.
Oh,
I
it's
haven't heard that.
biostitute. That's a
Bio-
biologist who's a prostitute for a commercial venture.
Oh my God. Okay.
It's yeah,
Sorry.
sorry.
Obviously there are a lot of words that I need still to learn, you know.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a newer word, but we've seen it so many times. You've got someone who has trouble making a living as a scientist, and they end up working for a developer, mapping out endangered species territory and saying, okay, well, this is only this little bit and this will be fine. Or
Mhm.
here's our mitigated neg deck, because this mitigation will handle the fact, okay, you're going to take away this wetland here, you'll put one in over there. We don't know if that'll work.
You know, it's fascinating to me always how we, I think only now sort of the world is starting to come around to, you know, animals and even the plants. There's so much research into plants now that they're sort of sentient beings and they do have
Yes. Yeah.
intelligence in some. It just, to me, it's so sad how we think that we can just take this and plop it here. It's like, well, think about yourself. You know, if somebody took you out of your house
Mm-hmm.
and plopped somewhere else and here survive,
Here you
and
go.
it's just the same exact thing. And people are just not, I think, in majority of people are not thinking about wildlife and wild animals in the same vein. And I also, something that I would be very interested in talking with you about, that the whole connection and how we are completely dependent on
Yeah.
Ecosystems do not just exist for our
Mm-hmm.
enjoyment.
Mm.
Yes, we enjoy them, but they exist there because they are part of the chain of
Yeah.
breakdown and flourishing and, you know, creating and dissolving matter,
E-
so to speak. You know?
Exactly. We're dependent on the planet, and we're dependent on the ecosystem. It is not dependent upon us. Although certainly the Native American peoples, the indigenous cultures, have a much different relationship with the world than we do as a Western culture. Um, and they they understand the reverence, they understand the connection deeply, they understand the need for respect. They always would talk to, and I'm just reading this wonderful book, Braiding Sweetgrass, which just, I would recommend that to everyone, to really hear the heart of the Native American culture from America, that we've treated the same way we've treated the rest of the world, and the way we have treated Black Americans and minorities in general, which is to treat them very badly. And I would say, as if they're disposable, as if they're a resource to be used. And I even hate the word resource, because a resource is something to be used rather than a relationship to be had.
Yeah.
And I wanted to read something, actually. This is a quote from Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien, which was an influential book for many of us in high school at that time. And with the movies, it's come back again, but the book itself spoke to me in so many ways. And this is a quote from, of course, my favorite character, Gandalf, the wizard.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
I watched. I didn't read the book, unfortunately, but I
But you
did.
saw the movie. So you know Gandalf. He's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And this is from the first book. The rule of no realm is mine, but all worthy things that are in peril, as the world now stands, those are my care. And for my part, I shall not wholly fail in my task, if anything passes through this night that can still grow fair or bear fruit, and flower again in days to come. For I too am a steward. Did you not know?
Whew.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that, yeah, you know, yeah, the Bible, I was raised Catholic, so we did a little bit of Bible studies. We mostly got through Genesis, maybe up to Moses. That was it every year. But we're supposed to be stewards of the land.
Yeah.
And a steward is a caretaker. It is not an exploiter.
No.
It is not dominion. It is not dominion over the plants and animals.
No.
It's caregiving.
And that's why you're saying that. And I thought about that because the faith community is so influential in everything,
Yeah.
in the world. It's business, politics, religion, arts, that there's those big buckets, and religion definitely, and faith community is so influential. And that puzzles me always, that
Yeah.
you're right, we are the stewards. It means we are protectors, we're care.
Yeah.
I'm preaching to the choir, obviously, but
but not always. Yeah.
I think that's important to collaborate with faith community also, because there are actually a lot of faith leaders who share that view, and who are trying to be the stewards of the environment also. And I think we need to just really
cross that divide. It was an unnatural divide where I believe the Republican Party really captured that, those peoples in that community. And as Democrats, we kind of blew it off. Okay, family values. Well, that's great. And politically, that was a bad maneuver.
Well, and yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, again, it gets into religion, and a lot of people maybe don't believe in God, don't believe in that, but they're still humanists, or they're still ecologists, so they're still absolutely committed to the health and safety of the planet. You don't have to have a belief in God or an afterlife to be there. But the capturing of that community led to other things that I think were very damaging.
No, well, I think it's just, you look outside, even if you look at, we in California, so we are really blessed and quite spoiled, lucky. I mean, I come from community that's in the winter, it's sort of, there's no greenery, but I mean, nature is still such a wonderland. You look at small things. I mean, like, you look at the snowflake, and it's just absolutely
amazing.
And
winter.
Exactly. So anyway, you look at nature in small or large scale, and it's just absolutely fascinating, just from that sheer awe of it. I think
it's a wonder. It's a wonder. And
exactly.
Yeah. And this is where I think we need to open our hearts up. And that's the point, to open our hearts up. And right now, with the fires and everything, what I'm feeling mostly is incredible grief. Just incredible grief for what we have done and what we continue to do, because it's so difficult to change habits. It's so difficult. I mean, we've changed a lot of habits lately since February. We've all learned about masks, and we've all learned about social distance and all that stuff. And that's been helpful as a reset or a reboot, if we take it that way. And there's other folks that are out there trying to get business as usual back again, and business as usual is killing us. But we're seeing a massive amount of development hitting California, and Marin in particular, but I think all areas of California. Not necessarily wise planning, all based on this false growth economy. And as long as our economy is based on continual, always going, grow, bigger, we are going to collapse. It's inevitable. There's nothing in nature, like I say, that grows forever except cancer, which then kills the host.
Well, and which kills itself.
And kills itself at the same time. That's right. Mutually assured destruction. So growth as a strategy isn't okay. And we're trying to put this sustainable thing on top of what's actually a depleted bank account. So sustainability.
That's a very good analogy. I love that.
So sustainability can't be sustained at this level where you have overdrafted your bank account. So what actually needs to happen is the growth of natural capital or reinvesting into the world. That's where some of these wonderful plans about, okay, we got to have 50% of the planet like not populated with people. And it's got to be different ecosystems, because otherwise we are killing our spaceship. We are essentially
We
cutting
need
off
to
our
do this.
oxygen lines.
Hands off. Get
Hands off.
off.
Nope.
And
Yep. Yep. You know, we need those plants, we need the air, we need the water filtered, we need oxygen. We don't maybe need the latest Fitbit or gadget or whatever. And God knows I'm as guilty as the next person. So, although I'm living here in the
actually,
virtual world.
I wonder what you think, because I mean, you do a lot of advocacy, a lot of political advocacy, but what do you think is also important to do in society to sort of transform, shift, change?
Yeah.
What are the things that we could individually and collectively do that will have a big impact from
So
your perspective?
that's tricky. A lot of it feels beyond the realm of the individual, into the realm where governments have to say, okay, no more fracking, no more investment in fossil fuels. I don't know how we're going to manage it. We're going to have either a crash now or a crash later, but we got to figure it out, because we can't continue to put CO2 into the air. We can't continue to cut down the Amazon rainforest. We just can't. We can't afford it. So individually, I know a lot of people are already doing it. They're trying to eat lower on the food chain. They are buying stuff at thrift shop. They aren't getting the latest, greatest, newest thing. They're trying to avoid plastic in every realm. Trying to live smaller and lighter and make do. And that's one thing COVID is also showing us, what can we do without having to travel to everywhere to see things or be with people? And God knows being with people is a lot more fun than this, but it's this is better than nothing.
Nothing like a real hug, that's for sure.
Nothing like a real hug or a real good party in the backyard, with folks and food and chicken and God knows what else, yeah, real gatherings. So I think in some ways this is a good, like I say, a good reset to try to reevaluate what's really important. And the Black Lives Matter community, movement as well, bringing this up to speed for those of us that haven't been paying attention for decades, hundreds of years. This is another place we need to do a reset. And all of these things are so interconnected and tied together. We have to, we love the idea of abundance, but we actually, and the idea of scarcity isn't great, because that leads to fear. So there is abundance in a certain realm, but the natural world is not abundant in that way that it's limitless.
No.
So we have to actually put limits on our own productivity and our own wants. And we've shown remarkably little ability to do that as humans.
You know what? I'm very retrospective. Sort of, I question what are my intentions, what are my purpose, what am I? I mean, I'm just that way naturally. I've always been that way. But questioning, why am I doing this? Just bringing the awareness always. And it's like, I always have a choice. So for me, actually, I feel that I actually do believe in personal sort of in power of individual, because I mean, yes, one individual cannot do much by themselves, but I think that one individual definitely, I mean, the history shows that we can galvanize and we can inspire people. And I think we should, I mean, within the Sierra Club, we're certainly doing that. And I think a lot of activists individually doing, they have their own project going constantly. So it's activism attracts certain type of people. And it's interesting. I would encourage everybody to become an activist, because
please,
right now, especially now, I think that I'm looking through all of the last, 7-8 months, however long it's been. And I think that that's what mentally sustains me, that sort of being in a community of people. Yes, we have our disagreements. Yes, we, sometimes they're tough ones to work out, but even that, provides so much growth, so much reflection, so much collaboration, so much, movement. You really do, you are influencing something. And I think right now, especially, people need that so much, to feel that sense of purpose, to feel that they can do something to change the world. And I think that's
Absolutely. Yeah. Hopelessness is you've let the terrorists win. And it's like lack of humor is the terrorists have won, you know? Um, so I quite agree. And that was one thing, again, travel and going to other places or just meeting other people. It stretches your brain. I think it builds more neurons because you learn people have different ways of looking at things. Who knew? I never thought of it that way. For me, I'm infinitely curious about that. It was so much fun in Japan to see the Japanese perspective and how different that is and where it's different. I mean, even how you make rice, this is how you make rice in America. This is how you make rice in Japan.
how you make rice.
Two different ways. Yeah.
To make rice for sushi is like, wow, that's real art, actually.
It is art. It is art. But even just making your basic steamed rice for the table, and the respect with which they treat the rice, the name of, there's a word, rice is one thing, but if you're buying rice or making, gohan. So is always honorable. Honorable rice, your food. This is your food. It's honorable. It's a whole
food
different.
Becomes you.
Yes, and you don't live without it.
Exactly.
Wow. So in the language, it's embedded in the language, the honor.
Wow. So did you learn Japanese?
Skoshi, just a little.
And your children speak Japanese or not?
No, they went to the American school, and that was sort of a melting pot school, and so they emphasized English for the non-English speakers, and they got Japanese cultural lessons. So they learned to count, they learned colors, but I think just being in the Japanese environment, they learned a lot more than they probably realize. So every time we traveled on the train, we were character matching. If it wasn't, the kanji, if it wasn't like you need to get out at this station looks like that. It doesn't look like Shinkansen, or it doesn't look like Tokyo or Yokohama or whatever. It's that kanji. So they were learning that at a very young age. So I'm hoping it's all absorbed. My son, he would draw the house that we lived in Japan from 4 to 8. He knew the layout of the house. He knew the layout of the house to the park, to the school. And my daughter went back and visited Japan with her friends from college just to see what things were like there and what she remembered. And she remembers, my God, it was this long way from the house and this park was huge. And then she gets there, it's like, it's this little bitty park. Yeah, exactly. Little bitty neighborhood park to a kid is a big place.
Yeah.
When you're a little kid.
So much exploration happens, in a little bitty park.
It was actually, a very nice park, and there was a huge park, a Yoyogi Park, not far from us, where free bicycle rental, free bicycles for an hour or something. You just go in, you sign your name on a piece of paper, you get a bike for your size, and there's this huge, wonderful circle through the park. Everybody, children, adults, grandparents, you name it, everybody's out there riding bikes, and just fabulous. And on the older people that are helping with getting the bikes out are just all volunteers. It was absolutely lovely. Just lovely. So
when you came back, did you travel other places, or you said Galapagos and Hawaii, and
right, Hawaii for sure. My husband and I have been getting to Europe a couple of times now, which was nice. We did a Danube trip with a Viking cruise, and it's a smaller boat, and every place they stop at, they've made sure to have several different tours that tell you the history of the place and what's going on. So we went through the Danube locks. We saw where the water would flood. We saw the flood mitigation. I'm bringing that back to my area. What do they do in Europe? Because this river floods, and you're looking at the side of a brick building that's 6 stories tall, and you can't reach where the flood was back in 19, whatever it was. You cannot reach that high. It's several stories above your head. This is a river valley, steep. So they've had to deal with flooding. They've had to deal with all kinds of things that we haven't maybe had to deal with here. So you can learn a lot when you go to other places.
I'm glad you're saying that. I think that actually, like take public transportation. I mean, Europe is so far.
Good. So good. Yeah.
States, and they figured it out already, you know, and a
Mm.
lot of things, and waste management, and I mean, you name it, I think they have a lot of things figured out. And I wish our actually planners, you know, were able to cross-pollinate, because I
Yeah.
think that would save so much time and so much, you know, pain sort of to figure it out. And a lot of times it's like, you know, cross-pollination I think is always great.
It's always good. You know, if you learn that they do it this way and that'll never fly, and fine. But if you learn something, oh, this is cool. It's a new way to do it. This is great. And what I
Mhm.
noticed in Europe, as well as the transportation, of course, Europe grew up with the village, you know, the village, the little huts, the villages, and then there would be a village here and a village here and a village here. They didn't grow up with a car that could
Yeah.
drive in
Mhm.
big places. So truly the way California developed is inimical to
Yeah.
transit.
Yeah.
It's actually inimical because of the way it's built up. And the other thing I noticed about Europe is, again, because the rivers would flood, most of the time along rivers in Europe, you've got huge parks because the rivers would flood. And so you couldn't build there anyway. So why build there? So you'd have fields there or you'd have parks. And there's still parks. So there's huge public squares in Europe. And there's huge areas where people can gather. And although their apartments are all small, they've got restaurants and you're eating out on the street and you're doing all this wonderful stuff. And we brought over the congestion of the transit. This is my issue with transit-oriented development. The name sounds good,
Mhm.
but because we're sort of putting this overlay on a car-centrically developed place, it's not working so well. We don't have the density, and we also don't have the big public spaces that Europe has for people to gather. And right now, even if we did have the big public spaces, people can't go in there unless they're separated by 6 feet.
Well,
So,
you know what? I think the main thing that we don't have, I feel, you know, and I'm also coming from a perspective of growing up in Russia and using public transit all the time. It was
all
just
the time.
something that we did. It
Mhm.
was a question. I mean, yes, of
Normal
course, everybody wanted a car because it was a sign of whatever.
status.
Exactly. But then, you know, we didn't have credit in Russia, so you had to actually save. My father was working extra, you know, during summers building houses, even though he is a shipbuilding engineer and had a very good job with a you know, shipbuilding agency in Russia. But he went to for a couple 3 weeks every summer to build houses for people with his friends to make money to, you know, save for the car. But anyway, I went on a tangent. But what I was going to say is that I think that what we don't have in the United States is the habit. So mentality is not there to use public transit, because
Right.
you know, actively, of course, it's all now, you know, we're talking about that car companies did it on purpose to take
Yeah.
out trams, take out, you know,
Take out the train lines. Yeah.
to train people to, you know, it's all marketing. It's
It
like
is all
cars
marketing.
better,
That's
cars
probably
better.
the biggest evil
Yeah,
is the marketing.
so it
Because
changes the perception.
and it feeds desires, which and they could get confused with needs. And when wants get confused with needs, life can get, you know, a little bit dangerous there.
Oh, that's a good point,
Yeah.
actually. That's true.
Yeah, and so every new thing that comes out, oh, we want the newest thing. We want the greatest sparkly thing, you know, like magpies, just sparkly new thing. And I have it as much as anybody. I love sparkly things, but
I do
what's the
too.
cost? Yeah, exactly. What's the cost?
And that's again going back to our conversation before, you know, I was like, okay, I want it, but
Yes,
what is the cost of it? You
that's
know, I
such a
think
good question it slows down shopping enormously. But it's a really good question to go in with. I'm really glad you shared that, because
you know what
it's almost like
also,
a koan that we should have, or meditation we should have before anything. Just slow down and, do I really need this?
you know, another thing that, sorry, I'm just like, I
No,
want
this
to
is
ask
good.
you,
I love it.
but it's
Yeah.
like you were bringing so much things in that I was like, oh, my reflection. You know, something I started getting into, and I want to actually ask you about homeopathy and how you got into it. You know, I started getting into sort of really researching food and food in our Ayurvedic traditions, and just I really started getting more into not just based in, sort of the material breakdown of foods that you take in, which is extremely important too, but also the energy that those
Yes.
foods carry. And I think this is something that we don't talk enough about, and we sort of, it's a little bit in the realm of woo-woo, it's not scientific, but there's actually a lot of science coming up now.
There
So
is.
I'm thinking, it's like, okay, if I'm buying this product, what kind of energy does it carry? How much do we pay people? How did we treat the animal that we're about to eat? It's like, do I want to take in that energy, or do I want to opt for something else? And I think that starting those conversations, actually, getting people present to what they are promoting by buying this or taking it. I think so.
Right.
Anyway, so yeah. How
That's
did you get into the whole homeopathy from zoology? And that's
yeah, I'll get to that, but I just really love what you just shared, and I want to emphasize that that respect. And yeah, I think that's behind, let's do things organically. Let's treat the animals on our farms well. Those CAFOs are scary, and they really are not. They're just in every way. The industrialization has not been kind to the planet. It has just not been kind. And
to us.
Or to us is, yeah, it's a side stream. Yeah.
No, because people, corporations a lot of times was, they know not good for people, period.
And their job is to just make money.
Us. Exactly.
Yeah. Their job is just to make money. And that's sad. That's where it inflames greed. And that's one of the issues. But I got into homeopathy because I said I had asthma as a child, just as a child. My son also had asthma as a child, but I really didn't think that he should. It was once a month he would get a cold, and the cold would go into asthma. And sometimes we'd end up in the emergency room. And he's 1 year old, 2 years old. I just didn't think it was right. So I started exploring. He went through the standard medical sort of treatment. We tried chiropractic. We tried diet. So we were doing a gluten-free, lactose-free diet way back when. And that's when you couldn't find a whole lot of stuff. Nothing seemed to make a difference. And then I heard from 2 different people, one of whom was my brother, about, well, this is homeopathy thing. Might give that a try. And I happened to live like 6 blocks from the Hahnemann homeopathic clinic in Berkeley at the time. So that was like, oh, well, 6 blocks away, how it's almost like a sign, so go and try. And I started reading up on it. First of all, and the first thing I was reading, I was like, this is complete crap. This is crazy. Are they possibly, I grew up with Kaiser, the standard Western medical mindset. It was like, this is sure crap. And then this funny little voice said to me, what if it's right? What if this were true? And I felt this flip in my brain, literally a flip in my brain. It was like, oh my God, this is true. Wow. This is how it works. This makes complete sense. The other paradigm is completely nonsensical and non-scientific, to be honest. It's non-scientific. It's like, let's make something and try it.
Yeah. What is the what is the core?
Homeopathy, like cures like. The symptoms that your body is producing is almost like a call for help. And what it wants is what it's asking for. So one of our examples is like, if you have colds or hay fever, you'll know you get the stinging eyes, running nose, all that stuff, acrid. And one of our main remedies for homeopathy is the onion. Now, what happens when you cut an onion? Your eyes start tearing, you start streaming, your nose is running. So this is a similar situation to what your body is telling you it's having an aggravation from something else, causing the same reaction. So for a lot of people, trying homeopathically prepared onion, not just going to the kitchen and cutting an onion, but homeopathically, dynamically, so it's a different energy. It sends the message to the body, like, here's what you need, here's what you're asking for, and the body self-regulates.
That's so, I'm
yeah.
I think I need to have a flip in my brain right now. Like, how does it? So I think what I'm really is like, well, wait a second. So your body is already sort of irritated by this.
By something.
Why would you add more of this that potentially could I think I need a help with a brain flip.
Okay, so we're gonna do a graph now. You've got a car you're pushing uphill, right? And you can't quite push it uphill, keep sliding down the hill, so it keeps looking here. But if you get it up and over the hill, you're smooth sailing. So
Yeah.
it's almost like the body is trying to manage and self-regulate itself, but it's not getting what it needs, and it's trying to tell you what it needs. So if you can give it what it needs from something that's similar, not the same, but similar. So that's why I say you don't, if you're streaming from an onion, you don't cut up more of the onion. You go outside and get some air.
Yeah.
But if you got hay fever, which is maybe caused by pollen or who knows what, giving yourself homeopathically prepared onion, if you have those symptoms, can be curative. Now we have a number of different, ragweed pollen is another one that works really well for people, Wyethia. And that's if you got this, that in the back of your throat, you want to itch the back of your palate. So there's different symptoms that show up that these plants actually will produce. And we've tested, what I also loved about homeopathy is the only medicine that's been tested on people first before it's been given to animals or plants.
For centuries, right?
For centuries. And it's been given to men and women equally, unlike standard medicine, which we all know has been tested on male college students for the most part. And for some reason, women with their different hormonal systems just kind of act differently. Who knew? So for me, it made perfect sense. It was brilliantly beautiful, clear, followed law. It followed a pattern in law and natural law. Natural law. Exactly. And my son's asthma was cleared.
Wow. That's
with a remedy.
Wow. I was like, how far does the homeopathy date?
1700s, Hahnemann.
Wow.
I'm really horrible on dates, but 17 something. Samuel Hahnemann was a German physician, and he had a large family, and he was actually appalled at what the medicine of the time was saying he had to do to his children to cure them or get them better. He left the medical bloodletting, all that stuff, or mimetics,
What is the leeches?
Leeches. Yeah, leeches are making a comeback. They're natural. They work really well for amputation.
Yeah, I don't want to disqualify leeches.
Exactly. It's sort of like right place, right time, right thing. So he actually stopped practicing medicine in that way and started just translating texts because he just didn't like what he was doing. And that's when I believe he was probably an alchemist as well. So he had that sort of idea in mind, and he did a lot of the research of the old texts. He was translating, I think, Old Testaments or something. He knew 5 languages. Your typical European,
of course.
but knew it really well. Yeah,
I cannot put myself in that category. I have I only speak 2 fluently and 1.
Yeah, you're way better than me. I don't know, smattering of a bunch of little ones, but nothing in depth except English. So well done.
Well, you know what? It's interesting. What also came up to me when you were saying is the importance of questioning.
Yes.
So constantly questioning, because this society also, especially, corporations, governments sometimes want us to just go and not question.
Right.
And it's interesting. I was just talking to some that Russians, with all of our, communism and socialism and that
propaganda
society, a lot of Russians are actually very critical thinkers. So they're always questioning, because there's a little bit of element of disbelief and non-trust in government.
Understood.
But it's actually, it's obviously negative things, but also the positive part of it, that is this constant questioning, which is also awareness, like you talked before. So critical thinking, I think, is critically important.
It is critically important. And again, when you've got the money filtering into the science, and you got money filtering into the medical training, and you got money filtering into the veterinary care. So for example, pet food companies spend a lot of money funding veterinarian schools. Is there a potential blending of motivations? When you have GMO Monsanto,
interest, it's just for some
conflict of interest comes to mind. You've got Monsanto funding Davis in a lot of their agricultural research. That gets to be a little bit, it's no longer independent, and the schools are looking for the money, which is understandable. looking for the equipment, and here it comes in a nice largesse, but then you've got obligations. And we're seeing that at all levels, I'd say, in medicine and veterinary care. So the vets are being taught that these diseases of animals are natural or normal. We don't know why, but they're not necessarily.
No, they're not natural.
They're not questioning the fact that what is going on with the animal's food supply or what's going on in the environment. Why are cats developing diabetes? Diabetes is a carbohydrate problem.
Yeah, I tell pet owners all the time, you either pay up front for good food and good care, or you pay afterwards.
Right.
It's just like with humans. What you take in will manifest itself one way or the other, and you have to be aware of that. So that you're absolutely right. It's interesting. But why did you bring veterinary? I'm wondering, because I'm a veterinarian, so it's like
great. Well, zoology, veterinarian. I worked as a vet tech straight out of college as a an unofficial vet tech. I just started volunteering at local Berkeley Dog and Cat Hospital, and they hired me after a week. So
wow.
It was animal. Yeah, well, yeah, I would do anything, and I loved being there.
I didn't. It was not wow. I'm not completely surprised. I mean, I'm not surprised at all that you were hired, because you really have a lot of affinity for animals. You understand. You had a lot of experience also. So that wasn't. I was. Because I'm a licensed veterinary technician actually in California. So
which is a step that I did not take. So I was an unlicensed one. I was doing that particular job, but I wasn't fully trained to do everything that a vet tech would do. But we did a lot. I ran the anesthesia machine during surgeries and things like that. Didn't do any actual surgery. Very glad I didn't have to. Cleaned out cages, the whole thing, every piece of it. I forget where I was going with this. You'd asked a question. The food.
Why veterinary medicine?
Yeah. So for me, it made sense after zoology in school, and I just didn't want to go to school anymore. I wanted to get out and do some work, in the real world, and so that was a good step learning.
How long have you been working in veterinary medicine?
That was boy. It was. I'd like to say 2 years part time. You
get a lot of experience in that time, for sure.
To be honest, and then I did some other things after that, but that was within that realm. I knew I didn't want to go back to school again. I really, it was how many 12, 15 straight years of school. I really wanted to be not going back to school. So going to be a vet afterwards didn't look appealing to me. Going to be a vet tech didn't look appealing to me. So I went off. Eventually I got kids. So that's another sort of zoology story, because changing diapers, cleaning cages, feeding.
Cages. Oh my God.
Oh yeah. Well, sorry, for the animals, not the children. No, the children were not in cages. No, that would be
good.
I still think children in cages is not a good idea.
No, I'm glad we clarified.
Yeah. Children should never be in cages.
Well, like you mentioned, you have 2 children, and how many hands on you? 10 hands or? Chickens.
Oh, chickens, hens. Yes, 5.
Oh, only 5.
Only 5. Small flock, just enough for the 2 of us and some friends. We trade down the street. Friend who has a wonderful fig tree, and I love figs. So he gets eggs, I get figs, or we get something else, and it works out well.
Yeah, 5 hens. They lay about 4 eggs.
Yeah, almost an egg a day. They usually have a day or 2 off a week. That they self-regulate that well. During the really, really hot weather, they weren't doing much of anything, and I don't blame them. There's a lot. If you think about what's in an egg, the water, the fats, the nutrition. I just think they're the original turning straw into gold animals. They're just quite
Everybody likes eggs.
Everybody likes eggs, and sadly everybody likes chickens. So they're really, they have to be in a cage, or they would be bobcat food or raccoon food.
We have a lot of coyotes also in
exactly.
But I can't
Yeah.
believe, actually, I'm looking at the clock. It's 1 o'clock already.
Oh, really? Oh boy, we could go on for
Almost
hours.
there. But anything that you want, sort of, I didn't ask you, or you want to communicate, to leave me and our wonderful people who are watching, and hopefully watching and listening, and going to be watching and listening.
And hopefully having fun and everything too. Sorry,
Oh,
I got to stop that. There we are. Yeah, oh, what's the word? I was going to say, stay safe, stay active. We need people to be active at this point. We need to question almost everything. The general myth that we're being told in a lot of different ways needs to be challenged. And yeah, look out for your health.
Yeah, no,
I guess,
that's
and
it.
love nature. That's again braiding sweetgrass. It's just like, how often we love nature for coming in this way, but how often do we express our love to nature, our love for nature to nature? How often do we tell the trees, oh, thank you,
Yeah.
I love you? How often do we tell our plants and the other animals that share the world with us, or we should be sharing the world with rather than taking from? We love you, thank you, and they love us. So that's what I would leave with. I thought it was just a wonderfully different non-Western mindset and heart set to carry with. So
Thank you so much
yeah.
for saying that. I think it's words of wisdom, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate all your work, Judy, and all your wisdom. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
your humanity. I think that the main, yeah, I really appreciate how you approach everything with such thoughtfulness and such empathy. And I think that's what we need also in the world now. So thank you.
Absolutely. Serious empathy. Yeah. Thanks, Olga. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you so much. Oh my God, we need to do hike.
We'll do part 2 later next year.
All
Come
right.
back. The sequel. The horror continues.
All right, let's stay for a second, but I'm going to say bye to everybody
Okay.
who is watching and listening. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Tune in and to In the Know next Friday again at noon, and always wonderful, incredible local heroes who are doing a lot of work on local and world level a lot of times. So please tune in. Thank you so much. Have a incredible, safe, wonderful weekend. So bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.